Naruto Uzumaki, the Jinchuuriki entrusted with hope. I'm not gonna lie, that title for this figure is super lame. But that has little to anything to do with the figure itself. Is the figure worth adding to your collection? There's some people who definitely won't feel that way. However, in my absolutely arrogant and superior opinion, aesthetically, it's pretty good. But as usual, it could use more paint. More shading to be Pacific. No ocean. The sculpt work on this figure is pretty damn good, which is why I harp on the figure not having paint. The paint would take what's a decent to good figure to make it a great or amazing figure. But the paint that is here is pretty good. Meaning the face paint and on things on the headband where it was necessary. All of that is clean, no sloppiness. Now, I might be a bit late to mention this, but on the leg, there seems to be an opening on the seam of the pant. And it's not a huge opening, but it's something I figure I mentioned since I'm a reviewer and this is what's on my copy of the figure, just in case you get the figure and you have a similar issue. But with all that being said, aesthetically, I give it about a 7.5 out of 10. It could definitely use where the sculpt is carrying heavy on this figure. And with that being said, what accessories does it come with? Naruto comes with 2 fist hands, 2 clutching hands, which allows him to hold a weapon. More specifically, in this case, his next accessory, this kunai knife accessory, which is done very nicely, by the way. Sculpt is very nice. It doesn't need a whole lot of paint, but definitely looks pretty good. Open palm hands, 2 jutsu hands, 1 open palm hand with a hole in it, so he could hold his Rasengan energy effect part, which looks pretty good, but I wish it had more of that swirl effect going. Also, I'm going to take a picture of it and so y'all can see a bird's eye view of the effect. At the top of the energy effect part is painted white-ish, so it has kind of a frosted sort of effect on the top of the Rasengan, as y'all be able to see in the picture. And I think that's a pretty cool touch. Maybe I'm not sure if I should go further down. That frosted effect should go further into the Rasengan accessory. But, pretty good. He comes with a pair of crossed arms. And, by the way, one thing to note is that one of his arms, the hand that's supposed to be tucked, doesn't tuck completely into the arm. And that leads to it takes away from the illusion that his arms are crossed. Because you can see that space between the hand and the arm. I'm going to put up a picture that zooms in and shows what I'm talking about. But either way, pretty good accessory. By the way, his cross arm accessory, you can break off into 2, which makes it easier to take off his 2 arms and plug them in, rather than how they used to do the cross arm accessory where it would just be one solid piece. This makes it much easier to put this accessory on. So, great move by Tamashi. That's all I wanted to say. For faces, Naruto comes with his standard cheesing face, where he's like running really hard. Serious face. A comedic face, which you could use for a variety of different situations. You could use it to show that he's either pumped about something or just shocked by something. Villain face, or I'm about to give a villain a lecture face. And last but not least, a nine-tailed fox activated face with his teeth gritting. Which I think the teeth sculpt on this faceplate looks a little, I don't know, goofy for lack of a better term. But it looks, other than that, solid face. Overall, I'd rate Naruto's accessories 9.5 out of 10. There's not much more I could ask for from this guy, besides a shadow clone, but that's basically asking for a whole nother figure. And the only reason why I didn't get a 10 out of 10 from me is that I think the hands could use more paint. As usual, I'm a stickler for paint, but that's it. For articulation, pushing his neck to the absolute limit, he can look up about that far, but as you can see, it's a bit of gapping between the neck and the face, so be wary of that when you're taking your photos. You can look down about that far, and you get a similar situation looking down. You can see some gapping right there in the back. Even though I would say 9 times out of 10 you're not going to be looking at it from that angle, I just want y'all to know that that is there. His head can swivel, And you could do all types of nuanced posing with this. Oh, just popped his face off. Hold on. As I was saying, the head swivel's fine, but one thing I noticed, when you turn the head, you see this separate hairpiece on the back of his neck right here? I'm going to circle it so you can see what I'm talking about. That will have a tendency, when you turn it that far, to make the faceplate want to pop off. So be mindful of that. Other than that, head articulation, perfectly fine. For his arms, 360-degree rotate. Swivel at the top of the bicep. Double jointed elbow works fine. Wrist hinge works fine. Butterfly joint allows the arms to cross forward very nicely. Going back, it's not nearly as good, but I guess it's decent. Crunching forward, pretty good. Leaning back, pretty good as well. Side to side is pretty good, although I will say you're getting most of your movement from this top diaphragm joint right here, not really the bottom. You get a nice twist in the torso, although I will say most of the twist is coming from this bottom joint. Also, this part of his jacket being a floating piece helps it tremendously because it allows for the sculpt to stay somewhat organic because it doesn't like break the sculpt too much. It makes it look like, to a certain extent, that the fabric is actually twisting and turning. So that's pretty good. Almost perfect splits. Cut at the top of the thigh. Now, with this thigh cut, one thing I will note is that, you see that right there? Wiggle, wiggle. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm pretty sure that's not an intentional thing because nobody has that type of movement in their leg where it wiggles at the top of the thigh like that. So just be mindful of that. Just something I want to let y'all know about. Double jointed knee. Excellent ankle rocker. Good ankle hinge going up and down. And you get a good toe hinge, even though it looks ugly as hell. His leg going back is pretty minimal. Kicks forward that far. Overall, I get the articulation a 9 out of 10. What can I say? I think the only problem is the leg going back. But other than that, the articulation works like a dream. Like, it's damn near perfect for me, at least. But y'all can let me know how y'all feel. Okay, so for this striker pose segment, it should be fairly quick. I didn't freestyle anything. I just got reference images. I only got 3. So starting it off, I have the volume 29 of Naruto cover. And this figure got into it pretty easily. Like, I had no difficulties, really. I guess you could say in the picture he's crunching forward a bit more. And with that, I'll say, the core articulation is good, but it's not great. In order to crunch forward that far, I would say it would have to be at a great level. But at this point, it's just a good level. That's something that they can improve on in the future. This next picture is just a random poster, I guess, for the Naruto Shippuden anime. And this is yet another thing. I think I was kind of sleepy when I was doing this, and I was starting to get a little confused with the perspective. And I was like, no, freak it. I'm just gonna go for it. And this is how it came out. But I have no doubt in my mind that you can get a much better pose than how I did right here. This was like something quick, like I said, since I was tired. On to the next one. This was a poster. Looks like it was drawn by Kishimoto. And I really like this pose, so I tried my best to get him into this pose. It's still little nuanced things that I think would make this pose more dynamic in terms of the figure. But in all, it got into the pose pretty easily. Like, especially that core articulation really helped this figure out a lot in some of these poses, because Kishimoto tends to draw his characters in very dynamic poses, to say the least, and he plays with perspective a lot. So definitely, this figure, he could do pretty much anything that you need him to do in terms of posing. The real issue is, like I said a million times before, the paint. But besides that, let's get to height comparisons, and then we're going to close it out. For Naruto's height, he stands about... Give me a second. Let's see. The top of his head, a little bit under 6 inches, so like 5 3/4 inches. And in centimeters, he stands about the top of his head, a little bit under 15. size comparisons, here he is next to Goku, man, or your standard Marvel Legends 6-inch figure. Giorno, Mayfex Superman. Overall, should you get this figure? Absolutely. Why? The sculpt work is on point. You get a shit ton of accessories, and then when you consider all this in combination with the price point, $35, you can't beat it. Especially since this is a revamp of this line. Previously, Tamashi Nations tried their hand at making Naruto figures, and the line, I guess you could say, failed, and they're trying it again. So if you want this line to succeed, you gotta, buy the figures. And so far on, they off to like a great start. So my overall rating, with all that being said, I gotta give it 8.6 out of 10. Great figure, pick them up. And until next time, Bombastic Plastic.
Here comes a new challenger!